Well, today we have come to Ysbyty Ystwyth, same as Aberystwyth, so it's on the same river, so it's in that kind of area of mid Wales. And really, we're focusing on 1859, an amazing revival. And we've come to Ysbyty Ystwyth first. This is an old Church of England church. There is a kind of more kind of historic Welsh chapel down the road, but that's pretty much a ruin now. But it is a beautiful place. Dan is showing me here lots of options for shots here, Dan.
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
So here is the grave of the man that we're going to be thinking about in the first scene today. We're actually filming 10 scenes today. On the grave, David Morgan. We're referring to him as David Morgan, as kind of historians have, but he's fascinating. 1859 revival, he's kind of the second guy to get involved. Very suspicious of the early moves of God here, but repents of his attitude, gets involved. But interestingly, right in the early days of his involvement, he woke up at about 3-4 o'clock one morning, woken up by the Lord, and was aware that something had happened in his mind. His kind of faculties had changed, and basically for the revival he got this phenomenal memory, which we're going to talk about later on. But it's absolutely amazing. It's a real quirk of history, that once or twice in Welsh church history you find these amazing memories coming for different reasons. So we'll find out more about that later on. One of the interesting things in filming the scenes about the 1859 revival is seeing something of an influence from America. And a Welshman out there, Humphrey, he came back from America and really brought that kind of sense of revival within. Now, what that link is, people really do disagree with, but there was definitely a link with America. He comes back to kind of the Aberystwyth area, and that's really where David Morgan joins up with him. And I really love this little book, Revival Comes to Wales by Ivion Evans. It's a very short introduction to the work, but it's amazing to look at this community. I mean, this church is closed. The chapel down the road is just a wreck and a ruin. Really, it's just a small, very beautiful farming community. But actually, back in the kind of mid-19th century, this was a hive of activity. There were mines close by where prayer meetings were happening during shifts. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. When you come here and film this, it's interesting because demographic and population shift and all of these things has meant that these communities that were so vital in the early revivals are no longer kind of large communities, but now are very, very small. And so Wales has developed and moved and changed. And so sometimes it seems like we're filming in the middle of nowhere, but actually historically and in relation to the size of the population in those days, it was vital. An interesting part of researching this and looking into it is the need to keep your eye on the population statistics of Wales when you're looking at revivals, because the numbers actually are much greater when you realise the population size of the day. But that's something for another vlog. Okay, Dan, are we ready for another scene? Well, it's the heat of the afternoon, and Dan is now filming B-roll. I know he doesn't look like he's working, but he's actually working. That camera is filming. He's filming an inanimate object. But the way Dan films it, it will look beautiful in the film. I trust that is the way to do it. But it's very hot, and basically I'm like, Dan, do you want to film me? He's like, no, I'll film a grave instead. So there we are. That's me put in my place. Enjoy. And so taking into account obviously population numbers and the change, obviously these communities then get smaller and smaller and the churches get smaller and smaller. And so actually we've come down to the chapel where David Morgan pastored, where the initial blessings, some of them began. And look at this, it's a great sadness. The building has pretty much collapsed. And I guess that's one of the things we're seeing, whilst maybe like in Watford, a house has been bought back. Actually, all these chapel buildings now are going to rack and ruin. A reminder really that, well, that the church is in decline. Now look, we don't want this documentary just to be a history programme, and we don't want it to be a kind of, oh no, these are the days of the small things. God is at move, God is faithful. And one of the things we're looking at today is the kind of decay of the church in 1850s and how God came. And, you know, we trust that God is at work and God can do great things again. But there is a great sadness when you come and see a building like this. Well, we've come down to Pont Rhyd y Groes. We're on a recce. Basically, there's a chapel here, maybe, but we can't really find it. And part of the joy of this film is trying to find these locations. Sometimes you strike gold, and sometimes you don't. And really, this is an amazing place historically. So Humphrey had started the revival, a guy that had come back from America. Local pastors had heard about what was going on, and so David Morgan, who we'd just been to talk about, he was very sceptical. And so when he heard that Humphrey was preaching here, it's like a stone's throw down the road, he came to hear him. And he listened to him, but he was very sceptical. And he came back a second night to hear him, and it's on that second night, really, that he spoke to him and realised that, you know, he wasn't a fake, he was real, and decided to work together. And really that's the beginning of, well, at times a bit of a tragic story in the 1859 revival, particularly in what happened to Humphrey, but we haven't got time to discuss that today. So here we are, it's a beautiful part, and if you ever do come here, down that road there is a phenomenal cafe. I just had the most amazing meat pie. Anyway, that's a nice bit of local knowledge for you. Well, we've driven over now to a very small village called Ysbyty, just above Aberystwyth. This used to be kind of place with local mines. Back in the early 1800s, this kind of population exploded. Cornish tin miners came up to help. There was some kind of spiritual awakening here. Apparently an earthquake or something happened, which is very interesting. But Humphrey Jones is linked here, although he wasn't brought up here, he was brought up in Treddwell. His early sermons, I think his third ever sermon, happened here in Capel Ysbyty, and I think it was his third sermon, and about 17 people were converted then. And this is before he goes to America. When he comes back from America, ready for this revival, although he begins over in his hometown of Treddwell, he does come to Ysbyty and spends about a month here, and records about 100 converts, which is pretty amazing. So the chapel is still here, and the other chapel next to it, that kind of Sunday school house used to actually be a youth centre or a youth hostel. I remember staying there in the mid-1990s, but I think it's a private dwelling now. Well, one of the great things about coming out and about is meeting people, and we met actually the gentleman that has the key to the church here in Ysbyty, and we come in and it's absolutely beautiful. This is quite a rare, if you can see that seating is angled. It's because of the church being extended out to the back and being on such hard rock that they couldn't dig down. So you've got these seats going up. Now, I've only seen one other church like this design, just as like Carmarthen once. I think there's only a handful of them in Wales. So this is an absolute treat. If you're into your chapel architecture and Welsh church history, this is quite exciting. So this is the chapel here in Ysbyty, where the revival happened. 100 people were converted here over a month, and the local population had to extend the chapel, which is beautiful. So there we are, Ysbyty Chapel. Well, our last stop of the day obviously is it's a difficult location. Filming is really hard. It's wearing me down if I'm honest, and it's just taking me to all these very difficult places. So here we are enjoying the sun, and obviously it is the most glorious place in Wales, Aberystwyth. A special place to me. I lived here for about 6 years. Absolutely love it here, and we're here now on the prom. Hopefully we're going to try and film and not be interrupted. I think that'll be a little bit of a miracle, but anyway, back to hard work. So we're filming. We've got a lovely view of Aberystwyth from up here. Dan is there with his camera. Hi, Dan. Dan today now is really feeling that he can push and put the pressure on. I think that's fair to say, Dan. So today, you know by now, vlog, kind of kickstart a family, I can talk. But if I have to talk and walk, that's a struggle. Well, Dan today on this shoot has made me talk, walk, and then angle myself away from the wind so that the camera doesn't pick up the wind. Those three things together, I'm going to be honest, it's difficult, Dan. It's difficult. But honestly, for you guys, it'll be brilliant. So let's go back to walking, talking, and avoiding the wind. Well, Dan, it's the end of a good day.
A productive day. There's still plenty of scenery stuff I still want to get, and drone shots, like phones died. But I shall return here probably in August. Whenever I can come and get the rest of the shots I need. There's so much beautiful stuff to get. So it's such a lovely place, Aberystwyth. I just hope that when I return, the weather's as good as this.
It's always sunny in Aberystwyth. Always sunny there.